listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
And what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast, presented by Inside Arkansas and hosted by the brilliant, handsome, and talented Andrew Ellis. What a stud. The best baseball show you've ever seen. I'm coming to you following Arkansas's 5-3 win over Portland. Perhaps not an outing that is going to blow anyone away, not one that we're going to tell our grandkids about, but Arkansas gets the job done. They finish off a clean sweep over the Portland Pilots, who some thought might be a little bit scrappy in this series. Ultimately, a team that's probably not very good. Arkansas did what they were supposed to do here in this matchup. And like I said, not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing game three. The lineup calmed down quite a bit, finished with just 7 hits in this game. But what it came down to was Arkansas had more arms at their disposal. We saw the Arkansas bullpen kind of piece it together one inning at a time after a pretty good start from Landon Beidle. She's on the bump to start things off. And ultimately, Arkansas scores 4 runs in the first 2 innings. That wound up being just enough. I felt like there were also some notable takeaways in terms of how Arkansas dispersed their bullpen down the stretch here in this game. And I thought they did a really good job. Bullpens did not allow a run. Really promising stuff. You got a little bit of a bounce back outing from Christian Fouch after we were sitting here last Sunday recapping his blown save. He moves to the eighth inning role, does pretty well. Carson Wiggins gets the save on the bump, and Landon Beidle gets the win. We'll talk about all that in a second, but I want to pull up this box score real quick, and we'll talk about how these runs got scored for the Arkansas Razorbacks today and what wound up being a pretty competitive series finale. So Charles Davalon continues to swing it really well. Spoiler alert for tomorrow's show. I always do the weekend winners. Who won the weekend? Who was kind of the individuals that stood out? Charles Davalon will be on that list. Seems like he just lived on base in this series, scored 2 runs in this game and in a 2-run game. That's what you want to see out of your leadoff guy. Had a couple base hits. He's really starting to swing the bat well. Vahiva Aloy, who, by the way, left this game, and nobody knows why. In the 7th inning, we just noticed Gabe Frazier sitting up there playing second base. Nolan Souza moves over to shortstop. Frazier ended up getting an at-bat in this game as well. Did not see that coming. Nobody really knows why. We'll wait and hear. I'm sure at some point during the stream, we will hear from Dave Van Horn as to why that happened. But definitely worth noting, Vahiva continues to swing it well as well. Had 2 base hits in this game. Had a huge insurance RBI provided for Arkansas in one of the middle innings there. I believe that was the bottom of the 5th. Really encouraging stuff for him. I think both of his hits went to opposite field, kind of up the middle other way. Continues to just show us really promising stuff at the plate. Raises that average to 433. Brent Iredale had the big swing of the day. Only had 1 hit, but it was a very important one. Hits a 3-run home run, 409 feet, 107 miles an hour off the bat in the first inning. Kind of set the tone for Arkansas in this game, and it wound up kind of being the only big swing they needed. They really just pieced together a couple more runs, and that was all she wrote. Rocco Pepe gets to start at first base, something that we thought might happen against a left-handed pitcher on the mound today. A left-handed pitcher who, by the way, threw a perfect game a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure if you've heard that, whether it was on the broadcast, this program, or just everywhere on Twitter. It's a very, and of course, when a guy throws a perfect game, that's a big deal. So yeah, Rocco Pepe gets to start at first base. Made a really big defensive play for Arkansas, by the way, to save a couple runs, get Parker Coyle out of a bases loaded jam. Had a base hit to right field, which I believe was his 200th career hit. So good to see that for Rocco Pepe. He will continue to be a factor for Arkansas in this lineup. Will it be an everyday starting role? I don't know. But good to see him play pretty well today in his one opportunity of the weekend. We hadn't seen him to this point. And Reese Robinette comes off the bench and finishes the game at first base as the tall defense replacement there. Carson Bowles gets to start in right field again against a left-handed pitcher. Arkansas gets a right-handed hitter in the lineup there. Kendall Diggs came off the bench once Portland went to a righty on the bump. He drew a walk, but good to see Carson Bowles get another opportunity. I think he drew a walk in his first at-bat as well. Ryder Helfrich just had the 1 hit today, goes 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, but the 1 hit was a big one. It was an opposite field home run. His 3rd home run of the year. I believe it was hit 103 miles an hour off the bat. Just a really good piece of hitting in a 3-1 count. Nolan Souza goes 0 for 3 with a strikeout. Justin Thomas goes 0 for 3. I felt like neither of those guys really had a good or a bad day. They were just kind of there, played some good defense, and both made some notable defensive plays. Of course, Nolan Souza had to move over and play shortstop when Vahiva Aloy left the game. Justin Thomas may have robbed Portland of extra bases with a nice running catch up against the wall. Love to see that. You see the pitching numbers down there. Moving on to that, Landon Beidle, I thought was pretty good in this game. I think that's how I would describe his outing. Nothing super spectacular necessarily. Goes 5 innings, has 8 hits, which looks bad. A lot of them were kind of bloopers or just kind of hit here and there. Did give up 1 long ball home run. That was his 3rd run he gave up. Really, I didn't think that he was, throwing the ball too much over the plate, catching the heart of the plate too much, living on the edge. It was really, a few good pieces of hitting by Portland. And he was able to limit the damage to 3 runs. Didn't walk anyone, which you love to see. Gives Arkansas 5 solid innings on the mound, gets his 3rd win of the season, strikes out 6. He's been pretty steady for Arkansas. He's maybe not been as flashy as Zach Root, might not have the crazy blow you away stuff that someone like Gabe Gackle has, but I feel like Beitelgeuse is kind of built in a lab to be a really solid Sunday guy. We'll see if that continues to be his role down the stretch here. And like I said, coming into this yesterday, if you watch yesterday's show, I kind of broke down how Arkansas had all these arms at their disposal in the bullpen, and we saw 4 of them today. Parker Coyle makes his first outing of the weekend, gets Arkansas out of a jam, came into the game with a runner on first and nobody out, ends up giving up a single, ends up giving up an infield single, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but ends up working out of the jam, and of course, Rocco Pepe stabs the liner, which saved him there. Aiden Jimenez, this is notable for us for sure because Aiden Jimenez is a guy that's been in that fringe of the circle of trust. You're kind of wondering, is he going to end up being a weekend arm that really helps Arkansas? Is he a middle reliever? Is he a long reliever? Is he a setup guy? Is he a midweek starter? We don't really know. We just like what we see. I thought it was very notable for him to get the ball in the 7th inning of what was a 5-3 game. I mean, so that's high leverage situation, kind of in that setup role. And he only faces 3 hitters, gets all 3 out, got a quick pop up, a soft ground ball, and then the Justin Thomas play that, it was a good piece of hitting, really the only hard contact he gave up, but Justin Thomas makes the play. So he retires all 3 of the hitters he faced. I guess you'll live with that, of course. And so I think it was good for him to get this opportunity and kind of, at least for now, solidify his position in the circle of trust. I was definitely surprised when Arkansas went to Christian Fouch in the 8th inning. I didn't know if that necessarily meant maybe they're going to try and get a 6-out save out of him, or maybe they're just trying to get him a good, maybe they feel like this is the big inning, this is the matchup they like. We'll get through this, and then we'll see. And then they go into Carson Wiggins to save the game after him to be the 9th inning closer in a 5-3 game. I think that's very notable. That's the first time we've seen this happen. Usually throughout the year, both guys have been closing games, but it's been Christian Fouch who gets the first high leverage 9th inning save of the weekend. This time there was only one for the entire weekend. They go Fouch in the 8th to set up Carson Wiggins to close. And of course, not a huge surprise. We knew Carson Wiggins had that closing potential in him, but I thought that was very notable. And I thought there were some messages sent a little bit with how Arkansas dispersed their pitching. Of course, Parker Coyle being kind of their go-to guy in a pinch to get lefties out, to just get you out of a jam. And he's been very good. He's now thrown 9 innings this year, has not given up a run. But for them to go to Aiden Jimenez, I thought was notable. Them to go to Fouch in the 8th inning and not the 9th was notable. And then Carson Wiggins, who I believe that's his 3rd save of the year, continues to be pretty good for Arkansas. Got a strikeout. Ended up having to get an extra out because the strikeout, Helfrich thought he had the ball, goes to tag the runner as he's leaving home plate. Ball's just sitting there right next to him. And so guy reaches first base on a strikeout. Next batter grounds one to third base, and you turn a 5-4-3 double play, who Gabe Frazier, by the way, makes that turn at second base. So really encouraging stuff by really all of the pitchers that threw. I didn't think Landon Beitelgeuse, this was like a peak, prime Landon Beitelgeuse outing, but I thought he was pretty good for Arkansas. Coyle probably wasn't his best outing either, but he gets Arkansas out of a jam. Jimenez was pretty solid. Fouch was pretty solid, did pick up a strikeout with this splitter, didn't really give up any hard contact in his 1 inning of work. And Carson Wiggins, good to see him continue to bank these valuable reps closing the game real quick. Going back to how Arkansas scored their run, so let's take a quick trip through this. Won't take us long, there's only 5 of them. Charles Davalon starts off the game with a base hit right up the middle. Vahiva Aloy follows with a base hit almost in the exact same spot. Davalon did his in a 1-1 count. Aloy gets his in a 2-2 count. Then Kahio Aloy flies out, and then both runners were able to tag up and advance 90 feet because it was a fly ball into deep center field. Both guys got a really good read on it. I thought that was notable. So right off the bat, Arkansas gets a situation, runners second and third, 1 out. kind of a prime time for Brent Iredale to do his job and drive in runs. And he went ahead and drove in both of those runs, including himself with his home run there. That was all she wrote for Arkansas in the first inning. You followed up with Ryder Helfrich, who leads off the second inning with a home run. So really good stuff. But then there was a little bit of a lull. Neither team scored in the third or fourth innings. I felt like the fifth inning was sort of when the game not turned, because Arkansas was up the entire time. But I thought it was a very notable inning. So Portland gets on the board here in the top of the fifth with, I guess, so they had 2 base hits to start the inning, a strikeout, and then a wild pitch moves runners up. They end up getting a runner in to score on a ground out, a ground ball to Brent Iredale at third base. Then the following guy strikes out. So you kind of stranded an opportunity at runners on first and second to start the inning, second and third with 1 out. And then where Brent Iredale hits the 3-run home run, Portland just gets 1 run there on the ground out, which I guess at that point made it a 4-2 game. And then Arkansas immediately responded in the bottom half of the inning. How many times do we talk about that, where it's so important when you put up runs on the board, when your pitcher goes back out there the next half inning, you can really keep that momentum and harness it if he goes out there and puts up a 0. Portland was not able to do that. Ended up going to a pitching change here. Charles Davalon gets a 2-out base hit, his second hit of the day. Really good stuff from him. He also steals a base. I believe that is his second stolen base of the year. He stole 13 last year at Florida Gulf Coast. We haven't really seen that part of his game a ton, but with 2 outs, gets himself into scoring position. We saw Arkansas do that a couple times yesterday, and then Vahivo Lloyd just goes the other way, pokes a base hit through the right side. They were shifted over like crazy on him. Just a good piece of hitting from the veteran there. Drives home a very key insurance run for Arkansas, makes it a 5-2 game. And then again, Portland has another massive scoring opportunity. They lead off the top of the 6th with a home run against Landon Beidelshees, and then they get a bloop single right after that. And so it's like kind of another situation where they have Arkansas against the ropes. Can they break through and get it? You have a runner on first with nobody out. Parker Coyle comes in, immediately gives up a 2-0 fastball right down the middle, base hit, makes runners on first and second with nobody out. And you're again like, okay, can they get something out of this? He gets a quick line out to left field, a fly out to right field. And then there was a weird play where a guy fouls a ball off of his foot, and it kind of has that weird funky spin to Parker Coyle on the mound. And Coyle's like not even really going to field this ball because he's thinking automatic, that's a foul ball. Guy runs down the first baseline and everyone's kind of looking around. Umpire just didn't make the call. And for those that are wondering, it's not a reviewable play. You can review fair or foul, but only when it's past first or third base. When it's a ball down the line, like if you hit a line drive that lands down the left field line, you can review that fair or foul. In front of the umpires there, those base umpires at first and third, it's not a video review play for whatever reason. I don't know why that's a thing, but that's not a play they can review. And so the umpire just missed the call in real time. They showed the replay 5 or 6 times, hits right off the guy's foot, but umpire didn't make the call, ends up being bases loaded with 2 outs. Arkansas's kind of, again, it's a 2-run game at this point. They've already scored 1. Portland had another opportunity to get something going there. Soft line drive to Rocco Pepe there at first base. That wound up being the only other scoring opportunity for Portland. And that's kind of where the game was won. And so good for Arkansas to kind of come through, had so many arms ready there. Even if Parker Coyle had given up a base hit there and it's a 5-5 game, Arkansas had so many arms available. Will McIntyre didn't throw this entire weekend. Tate McGuire didn't throw this entire weekend. Cole Gibler, who's a freshman, you probably don't want to throw him in this situation. He also didn't throw this weekend. And all these guys that we saw throw today only threw 1 inning. So you really could have probably stretched Coyle out, stretched Fouch out, stretched Jimenez out if you really wanted to. Arkansas had options, and that's one thing that's going to continue to kind of set this team apart as we move forward throughout the season. I've abandoned you guys for too long. Let's hop right into the chat and see what you guys have to say, and see if you're enjoying yourselves on this fine Sunday. You guys were not having fun last Sunday when Arkansas finished off a sweep, so we'll see if we're in better spirits today. HH starts us off as always with some hate. Just kidding. Safe to say the Pepe experiment is over. I would say that is not safe to say at all. I didn't think Rocco Pepe was like amazing in this game or anything, but he went 1 for 3. Made a nice defensive play, had a couple scoops. There was a play at one point where Nolan Souza, there was a ground ball hit up the middle and it went off of Landon Beidelshees, and Nolan Souza runs in, gets to it and throws it, like had to kind of throw it hard because the runner's coming, and it hits off of Pepe's glove. They ended up giving the guy an infield single. I thought they were going to slap an error on Nolan Souza, which would have been his first error of the season. You could argue a taller first baseman almost certainly makes that play. You could argue that Cam Kozel, who's a little bit more comfortable holding the glove there at first base, he maybe makes that play as well. So that's a little bit discouraging. But Rocco Pepe, we've kind of come to expect like he'll do okay at first base. He's not Arkansas's number one defensive first baseman. He's not in there for his defense. Like, let's just be honest, which is why they took him out of the game and went to Reese Robinette. Something they've been doing a lot here lately is going to that defensive replacement. I thought Rocco Pepe was fine though. Swung the bat pretty well. Got a base hit the other way. Good piece of hitting. Hit another ball pretty well to left field. Like I didn't think it was like anything crazy or like anything to be concerned about. I definitely don't think this is the day where we're coming away from it being like, okay, no more Rocco Pepe. I don't necessarily feel that way. We'll see if he can get over the Mendoza line here soon. But I think Arkansas, he's going to continue to get maybe not everyday starts, but starts here and there at first base. And he's proven too much throughout his career and was good enough in the offseason. I don't really see the need to completely abandon him, especially when you're giving starts to like Carson Bowles and Gabe Frazier on the weekend. I think you can afford to probably throw Rocco Pepe a start or two here and there. Daniel Outlaw says, that was an awful game for Arkansas. Was it? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say it was a good game for Arkansas necessarily, but I mean, you know, they finish off a sweep. Well, they outscore Portland this weekend. So it was 20-3 in game one, 10-0 in game two. So 30-3, 35-6 in 3 games. So of the 3 games, of course, this is the worst one, but I want to give myself a little bit of credit, pat myself on the back. Yesterday, recapping the show, recapping game 2, I thought, don't be surprised if game 3 is a lot more competitive. Portland's not good, but they're not as bad as they've looked the first 2 weekends. And hell, I'd even argue Arkansas is probably not as good. I mean, they scored 30 runs. That's going to be hard to replicate. 30 runs in 14 innings. So you felt like there was going to be some regression/progression on the other end. And so I thought it was a game. You weren't just going to come through this weekend and just completely ragged all these dudes completely. Baseball just rarely works out that way. But again, good to see Arkansas kind of dig deep, and I'll give you, good to see them dig deep and get the sweep regardless, even when they don't really play super well. Where's he at? Oh, he says, I need Andrew's soothing voice to calm my worries about the first base situation. So I don't know. I don't know if I would describe Arkansas' first base situation as like one that is a real issue here. I think, again, Rocco Pepe, I thought he was fine in this game. Went 1 for 3 with a single. Cam Kozel's been pretty solid there, pretty consistent. I thought everybody agreed we like Cam Kozel. I don't really view this as a situation Arkansas is going to have to like really figure out. Like it's something we're really panicked about. I feel like Cam Kozel is at this point the everyday first baseman. Maybe you'll give him days off against lefties, which they did today. But ultimately, like I don't really have too many issues with Cam Kozel. Reese Robinette's the defensive replacement guy. I think Rocco Pepe is going to bring a lot to the plate as a hitter, and you can kind of get away with playing him at first base. I don't really think Arkansas has that much of an issue there. But do you guys disagree? Let's see. Addison says, honestly, needed to play a full 9 after all these run rules. Yeah, no, this is fair. I think there was definitely a situation where Arkansas was hoping to get some other pitchers in this series. And, the last 2 games, you were only allowed to throw 2 relievers, basically, because your starters give you 5-6 innings. You only had 2 bullpen arms throw in this entire series. I think it definitely was something it was nice to play full 9, especially because you had 2 midweek games. You only played 14 innings there. And so it's good for Arkansas to finally break their run rule streak for sure. JT wants to know what's going on with Vahiva Loy. I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to hearing. I'm sure DVH is going to be asked about this in the next few minutes when he does his press conference. I'm sure someone will tweet something out about that. So I'm counting on you guys to come through in the chat and fill us in for what's going on. Hickory Hog says 1 through 9, Arkansas's lineup is better than the past couple years easily. I agree with this assessment 100%. And even though today obviously wasn't like a hitting showcase necessarily, I think through however many games it is, Arkansas 15-1 now through 16 games. I think we can all agree there's been a lot more encouraging signs. And really, we didn't see Arkansas do stuff like this to anybody. And so obviously, yeah, they're going to be tested a lot more in conference play. But it's not like Arkansas was even doing something like this last year against bad teams. You didn't see them rattle off 4 straight run rules. You didn't see them completely dominate series against McNeese or Murray State and all that. Like, they had to scratch and claw for a lot of those. And I feel like they're pretty well rounded on the mound too. I mean, obviously don't have a guy like Hagen Smith, but I think this is the best roster Arkansas's had top to bottom, and we'll see if it ends up being the best team overall top to bottom. Okay, and Dylan Sharp has a comment. I'm guessing this is about Vahiva Loy. He says, could it have been something to do with the slide back to first? Yeah, he even clarifies Vahiva. Could it have been something to do with the slide back to first during? I don't know if y'all lost me there for a minute or if y'all heard that, but no, I think there's definitely something. I heard some people saying shoulder, and so the slide back to first would probably make sense if it's a shoulder injury. That does seem to be the most common way people injure their shoulder in baseball, diving back into a base. We've seen that happen the last couple years now, so let's fingers crossed it's not the same shoulder injury we've seen play out a couple times, but I could definitely see that a little bit. And see. JT says Pepe is a bit of a liability at first. No doubt about that. Like, Pepe's not a good defensive first baseman, absolutely, but he is not Arkansas's first option there. Like, I think it would be one thing if he were playing there every day. He made one start there this weekend against a lefty, so they had Cam Kojal sit today. I think Cam Kojal's been pretty solid there at first base, and I think Reese Robinette is kind of their go-to defensive replacement guy. Like, today, I feel like it kind of played out exactly how it needed to play out. You get Rocco Pepe in there for his offense. He goes 1 for 3. You pull him out late when he gets close, and Reese Robinette comes in and makes a couple plays. Like, I guess I'm confused as to why, like, we're still having this conversation. I feel like Arkansas's kind of found the answer at first base, and it's Cam Kojal. And then here and there, they'll give Rocco Pepe a start. And so I really don't think, like, Rocco starting today is like a sign that Arkansas is toast at first base. And Hog On It says, I know I stated it last week, but Wiggins and Coyle over Fouch right now at closer. Good to have a game with in-game pressure. Well, I don't know if you watched today's game, but I got good news for you. Carson Wiggins started, or he was the closer today. They did go with Carson Wiggins in the 9th inning over Fouch. In terms of Coyle, I love Parker Coyle. I don't think closing is going to be the route they go with Parker Coyle. I feel like he's going to pitch multiple times a weekend. This weekend, you only had one game with high leverage situations, but I think they're going to use Parker Coyle as kind of their break glass in case of emergency, get you out of a jam, come in to face lefties, maybe come in the 6th inning and give you 6th inning, 7th inning, an out or two in the 8th inning type of thing. Like, they're going to stretch him out. I don't think you're going to see Parker Coyle in like 4-3 9th inning. Let's go to Parker Coyle. I think he's going to be in the role that he's been serving the first 4 weeks, which I think is a role that he has served very well. But yeah, I think today, I mean, it seems like today was like the official coronation of Carson Wiggins into that closing role. And so good to see him step up there. Let's see. Shout out to the Ladner fam. My nieces and my niece and 2 nephews. Mm-hmm. Am I back now? Am I good? Let's see. We'll get back to the chat here real quick. Let's see. Austin Hodge says, offense has been on such a roll that I kind of wish we didn't tinker with the lineup today. Need to keep them in that groove for conference play. I mean, I can see the case for this, and there's definitely something to the premise of starting everyone every day and kind of letting everyone get in that groove. I think today was as simple as they had a lefty on the mound. They had 2 righties the first 2 games. So it wasn't a switch due to, like, Kojo didn't get benched due to performance. Logan Maxwell, who I think is still dealing with that little bit of that hamstring injury, I don't think he and Kendall Diggs got benched due to performance. It was just a simple matchup. We're going to go this direction. And, then they also made adjustments throughout the game and pinch hit for some guys, brought in some defensive replacements. I see the case for keeping everyone in a groove, but I also don't think that, like, today got anyone out of a groove necessarily. And so we'll see what the lineup looks like on Tuesday. But I think they've got a pretty good definitive feel of the 11, 12 guys if you're counting Carson Bowles, which, again, I know everyone loves Carson Bowles. I don't really understand why he keeps getting starts on the weekend necessarily. But, I think today was more of a matchup. left versus right thing. And ultimately, they're going to need all these guys, all these 11. Like Pepe, I know everyone's kind of out on his defense at first base, deservedly so. But I think that's a guy that could give Arkansas some big time at bats down the stretch. And so we'll see. It'll be good to keep him fresh. Caden Jowers has a good question here. He says, I know it's early, but do you think the pitching has been underwhelming to what you had predicted for this season? I would say yes, but only slightly. And really, I'm not like actually that upset about it. I just thought the numbers would be a little bit gaudier. Not that they're bad or anything. Like I think Arkansas came into today like 7th or 8th in the SEC and ERA. Of course, no conference games. But like their opponent's batting average is like down in the bottom 4 or 5 of the SEC. Strikeout rates not super through the roof or anything. Like last year's pitching staff was on a much better trajectory at this point in the season, it seems. Definitely from a strikeout standpoint, a opponent's batting average standpoint. But the pitching staff's still been very good, though. Let's make no mistake about that. Like they don't walk a ton of guys. They do a pretty good job of getting out of jams. They're well-rounded. And I think really in that case, in that sense of like top to bottom depth, it's been what I've expected, because how often has Arkansas been in a situation where they really have 8, 9 arms that they really trust? I feel like that's the case this year, and that really hasn't been that way. So I think it's kind of, that's how we built it in the offseason, was that you don't let's see. Appreciate everybody for being here, man. Really appreciate you guys spending y'all Sunday afternoon here. This is it's always cool to do this, man. It's always cool to do this, and it's always cool that people want to hear about baseball in the middle of March. Steve Bardwell says Maxwell only one start this weekend. Again, I do think we'll see what DVH says. I think that hamstring is still continuing to kind of bother him and flare up every now and then. And so I think that was a factor. And I think today, of course, there was a lefty on the bump, and so I don't think him and Diggs being out of the lineup was anything crazy. But no, I mean Maxwell's going to be fine. I think they're just going to continue to take it slow with that injury. He started 3 games last weekend, so a little bit of an overcorrection, but I think he tweaked that hammy on Friday, which is why Diggs came in mid-game for him, and we haven't seen him since then. So we'll see if he can get back to normal, but I don't think you're going to be able to play him three games every weekend, and that's how it's going to work out. And Kopesky says Maxwell over Diggs. Sorry, but I see limitations with Diggs. Well, again, I think Maxwell's banged up, but what are you not liking what you see from Diggs? I think he's been swinging the bat pretty well here. And I feel like with Diggs, you have a pretty high floor. With Maxwell, you have a pretty high floor as well. But I mean, like Diggs, outside of last year where he was really banged up, we know he's going to take his walks. We know he's going to provide some power. We know he's going to hit for a pretty solid average. I also think Diggs, believe it or not, guys, I think Diggs is their best defender in right field. Between Bowles, Maxwell, and him, I think he's been their most consistent defender. And so I think Diggs is going to continue to get starts, and I don't see why not. He's been swinging the bat pretty well here lately. I have thought, but who knows? Ryan Hewitt says, feels like if we are going to drop Maxwell Diggs when facing a lefty, I would rather throw Pepe out there and leave Kojal at first. So this is fair, honestly. I think that's probably fair, and that's, again, I'm not trying to be like hard on Carson Bowles or anything. He got a couple hits in that Washington State series, and after that, everyone was like calling for him to start every day. And I wonder if that, like, I don't know what, they're just maybe trying to give him some to like make sure that he's okay. And I mean, you bring in a D2 guy, you want to give him an opportunity and all that. But I think Pepe is a guy that could really be a bat that helps Arkansas down the stretch. I'll be interested to see if they end up going that route in the outfield again, kind of loading it up with righties. Of course, you're always going to have some lefty in there between Maxwell, Davalon, and Kendall Diggs. Like, you're going to have one of them in there at all times, because Davalon, has some defensive versatility there. But I do think that's an option that I'll be interested to see if they explore. But we haven't seen Pepe in the outfield since week 1, so I don't know if maybe they've just decided to commit, and the first base is just going to be his position now. Let's see. Kopesky follows with, if there's one player DVH let walk, who would you want back? I would say the kid from Oregon, Neville. Yeah, Mason Neville would be a nice one to have. And his situation was tough because the year that he was at Arkansas, he wasn't going to start no matter what. Like the Arkansas's outfield that year was Jace Borfin, who hit over 300 with like 15, 16 home runs. Tavian Josenberger was in center field, hit over 300 with 12 home runs. Jared Wagner in left field hits like 340 with 15 home runs. Like there wasn't really a guy that you could have benched for Mason Neville. I guess you could have got him some opportunities there at DH or whatever. And he got a few opportunities in SEC play. But no, I think it's just kind of the way it worked out. He probably needed to go somewhere where he could play every day. But like last year, Mason Neville 1,000% would have been probably Arkansas's best offensive outfielder. This year, I think Arkansas's upgraded their outfield a good bit, but you could always use a guy with Mason Neville's talent. He's going to get drafted in a pretty solid situation here this offseason. Guys, we might have a special guest here in a few minutes. I don't want to make any promises, but we might have a special guest coming on in the next few minutes. We'll see. But again, I appreciate everybody for being here and hanging out on this Sunday afternoon. And as always, we will kick it for as long as you guys want to kick it, man. I want to be an open book, answer as many questions as I can, as long as my internet will let me. Let's see. So let's hop. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything notable from the chat real quick. Ryan says, why is this comment not pulled up? But here's a comment from Ryan. He says, I feel like they used the bullpen like they wanted everyone to get an inning as a result of 2 games in a row of not having to use many top arms. I think this is a very valid assessment here. Like, I think that, and going back to, I can't remember who it was that said it, that, it's nice to play 9 innings. I think Arkansas kind of had a little bit of an embarrassment of riches, but also you have so many arms, you would almost rather have some guys throw on Friday, some throw on Saturday, some throw on Sunday. Like Colin Fisher was really the only circle of trust guy who got to throw in the first 2 games outside of the starting rotation. But yeah, I think today, Landon Beidelshees, I actually thought they might pull him even sooner than they did. He only threw, 70-something pitches. 73 was his pitch count by the end of it. Now, I thought they might even pull it, have an even shorter leash because of how many arms they had left. But it kind of worked out flawlessly for Arkansas. I mean, we've talked about this a few times, like staying on schedule with your pitching staff. You want your starters to give you X amount, whether that's 15 innings or whatever. You want your setup guys to give you X amount of innings. You want your closers to do this. Maybe your mid-relief guys. Like Arkansas didn't have to do anything weird this weekend. I mean, Gabe Gackle ends up giving them 5 1/3. Beidelshees gives them 5. Root gives them 6. And so in a weekend where you had only 14 innings in the first 2 games, you end up having an embarrassment of riches. But today kind of played out flawlessly for Arkansas. Obviously, you'd like to see them hit a little bit better, especially with the way they swung the bats here lately. And they will face better competition. But I think today we saw like a microcosm of what could be for Arkansas on the weekend. They're going to always have more options on the mound than whoever it is that they're playing. Let's see. Addison says, way better athletes in the lineup this year, but do you think Nate being in the dugout instead of third base helps offensively? Well, I mean, it's hard to argue with the numbers, and the numbers have been pretty good. So we'll see. But I it's tough because it's like, I think this team was going to be better offensively just because of the way they attacked the portal in the offseason. Probably no matter what. But I think there's definitely something to that. I mean, this offseason, this program decided they needed to change some things up. They needed to reassess some what they were doing. They felt like that'd be something that would help. Nate is obviously, for as much criticism as Nate Thompson gets, he's very big on the scouting of what this pitcher does. Here's what to expect. Here's what pitches you should be looking for. He's big in those conversations. And so I think it definitely probably helps. And I think Bobby Wernis being a third base coach has been fine. I don't think he's made any crazy good or bad decisions necessarily. Maybe gotten a guy or 2 thrown out, but I think ultimately it's it doesn't, not to say it doesn't matter who you have coaching third, but if you're going to have a key coach doing something, I feel like Nate coaching the hitters is probably a more noteworthy job. And so it kind of makes sense. Everything helps. All right, guys, we are going to bring on a special guest now who's going to bring his expert baseball takes to the stage. Boys, it's John Nabors. How we doing, Johnny boy?
Well, I'm doing good, man. I mean, after a series sweep, it's hard to find too many things to be upset about. But I know that some fans are going to be pretty upset about some things. It's just the fact of life and how it's going to be. So, but man, it was good. It was good seeing, obviously the high scoring affairs and the shortest game ever played in a baseball side of things on Saturday. But I mean, I don't care about anything else other than getting the wins. And that's not to say there's not other things that can be worked on, other things that people can take issue with. But I mean, the way you're playing right now, and the way that you have guys that are rotating in and out, and everything, again, it feels good to have. Are you playing great teams? Like, is Portland a great team? No, but you're doing what you're supposed to do against them. And to me, that's what I enjoy. Is I like seeing going out there. Hey, you are better than them. You take care of business. Even though today I know got a little hairy, but you still won. You still found the way, and that's what I like.
All offseason, we kept saying, me and you joked about it so many times, no matter what this team does in the regular season, we're going to be like, but it doesn't matter. Regular season doesn't matter. They're going to choke in the postseason. But I've always wondered if there was any room for this team from a vibe standpoint, or really just the roster or whatever, to show us something in this regular season that they haven't. Obviously, they're going to have much tougher tests down the stretch. But through 16 games against these lesser competition games, do you get a little bit better sense with this team than maybe you felt in years past?
Well, I do feel like the way that they have played offensively, and I know, again, taking the competition at hand, you get the SEC play this weekend, which is going to change everything, for sure. But it's like, if I was going to see something that would give me at least a little bit of hope that the offense is going to be better this year, I've seen it. Doesn't mean it'll happen. Doesn't mean it'll be really sustainable throughout the entire SEC play, but they at least have not come out in all these games and won 4-2, in these. They've gotten offense in different ways. They've hit home runs. They've manufactured run. We've seen some bunts. We've seen some stolen bases. It's not always been perfect, but the things that Dave talked about changing and doing differently, they are doing some things differently. They have changed some stuff, and the offense is going really well. I mean, you got guys that are hitting over 400. I know it's probably not going to stay that way, but you have those things. And to me, again, does this mean, after these games, now everything's fixed, there's no problems whatsoever, it's all going to be good to go? No, but if I was going to make an argument for it, if I was going to make an argument that the offense is much better, I think they've done a good job of at least putting it out there for everybody to say, hey, we have changed some things, we got some guys, we got some dudes, but SEC plays a whole nother animal, so we'll see how that plays out for them then.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, it's like I would love to if for people want to say they do this all the time against other teams. They really don't. Like last year, they didn't have these non-conference series where they just put belt to ass and really put it on people. And so it's good to see that. I think they swung it a little bit better in Arlington, definitely than they did last year. So there just haven't been as many red flags been popping up. John, you look great, I gotta say. But Angel wants to know, how's the jaw? It looks better. You look a lot better than you did on Friday when I saw you.
Yeah, it's got some soreness. It's been bleeding a little bit today, but it's nothing a few cotton swabs couldn't take care of and handle. But no, it's doing good. I think it's still I've always wondered, because it's still kind of painful and sore, but I'm like, man, it's really nice. This is not bad at all. I'm wondering if it's just because I was in so much pain last week that this pain is nothing to me, or if it's just really I'm a miracle worker and I can heal like I'm was it Wolverine or Spider-Man or something? I don't know, but it feels good though. Thank you, Angel. I appreciate it.
Like Wolverine or Spider-Man. That is
isn't that what don't they have the self-healing power?
They have special DNA. I mean, okay. Wolverine for sure. He definitely is got the extremely fast healing. So that's good. Okay. That's good. Good nerd reference there, which is always, we got to get in as many of those as we can when Curtis is not here. Because Curtis is anti-nerd. Let's just be honest. Curtis is the guy that would have been throwing me and John in the locker in high school. He would have been taking our lunch money and bullying us a little bit. Kopeski, a resident chatter, he wants to know, now that your tooth is gone, are you going to read your own chats on your own show? Which I feel like is a little bit our Inside Arkansas live show. The chat's popping off. We acknowledge the chat a lot, but it's tough.
Yeah, we try to do as many chats as we can, but sometimes we're busy doing a lot of other things. But I will do my best, Mr. Kopeski. I'll try to read all my own chats on my own show. Thank you. I'll do my best.
Yeah. Woke COVID survivor, another legend of the chat. We've got all the stars are out today for sure. He says, at this rate, this team will have more hits than all of last season by the time they get to conference play. So I was trying to pull this up real quick. Our shout out to our guy Stu Hog, Corey Stewart, who posted a graphic. I think this was going into the weekend. This was March 7th. But he did like basically a side-by-side comparison of Arkansas's hitting in the first 14 games of each of the last basically 12 seasons. And the only team that had more home runs would be 2023. I don't remember them starting off that hot at the plate. They hit 30 home runs in the first 14 games. 2021, that dream season that we all had, this Arkansas lineup through 14 games. Now, these numbers have fluctuated a little bit. Hitting 100 points better, or slugging 100 points better, have 70 points more in the OBP department, have an OPS over 1, like a solid amount better, and they've hit 4 more home runs. And I think those numbers have probably gone up after this weekend because Arkansas swung it pretty well in the first these last couple games, if you ask me. So it's, I mean, on paper, again, like it kind of fits the narrative that Arkansas really hasn't been doing this. There was no point last year where they were hitting 325 as a team.
No. And that's where it's like, I don't know the numbers. I trust Stu Hall because he knows his stuff. But it's like, if you just go off the eye test and what it feels like they're doing so much better right now. I mean, and I know it doesn't matter when it comes to the big games, but you're run rolling people, you're scoring at will, you're having big innings, you're getting momentum hits. It like just what it feels like is it feels different. It feels better. But once you start facing that competition, which I know a lot of teams in the SEC are good, but what you got at Ole Miss to start the SEC series this weekend. And then I think South Carolina's at home. Is that the next one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. South Carolina is the week of what will be the NCAA tournament.
Correct. Okay. So, and they're good. So I'm not saying that they're terrible. But when it comes to maybe easier opponents in the SEC, especially on your schedule, that's a nice easing into it because you're closing the SEC schedule with just a crazy competition. But I also like the fact that you're having the first couple of weekends in the SEC going against solid SEC teams, but not the Tennessee, not the LSU, not the top 5 teams to start off. It gets a nice little easing in this into seeing where you stand among the SEC.
Yeah. Shout out to Addison here, who notes that Arkansas hit 197 against righties. It's kind of crazy because you feel like a lot of times there's years where it's like, oh, Arkansas just can't hit lefties or whatever. And so you expect to see that kind of number. 197 against righties is crazy because that's like 75% of the pitchers you face. Like it's a large sample size, but yeah, that certainly will not be happening again. And shout out to Westside Jacoby, who wants to know, how did Souza end up finishing the weekend? Saw his home run the other day. Did he do good other than that? Today he went 0 for 3, although I guess he did have one pretty decent swing. One swing that probably should have gotten him a hit. He went 1 for 3 yesterday, scored a couple runs, reached on an error, but had an RBI single in that game as well. Also stole a base. So I wouldn't say this weekend was like the Nolan Souza showcase, but he's definitely past his slump where he's like striking out 3 times a game, like all in the last. So he snapped a 5-game hitting streak today, but he had only struck out 3 times in the last 6 games. So he's cut down on the strikeouts a good bit. Hasn't quite gotten over the Mendoza line. Him and Pepe are like right there. They're inching their way closer to getting over 200. But I feel like both those guys are going to continue to get opportunities. And Souza played some shortstop today, and so if nothing else, his defense is always going to be pretty valuable. Fishman says, when did Georgia become a baseball school? Well, I'll tell you, you know this, John. You know exactly when they became a baseball school. When you hire Wes Johnson, that's when you become a baseball school. So that series later in the year, that's going to be a tough road series for Arkansas.
Yeah, which I'm curious of. Like, I'm sure it's been done other places, but like for Van Horn and his coaching tree, we know how great it is. It's like everyone knew that Tony Vitello was a great assistant coach when he was here. People knew Wes Johnson was a great assistant coach whether he was here. So it's not surprising that those guys are going to end up being great head coaches too. Like there's just something about it. And who knows, maybe Matt Hobbs will be the same way whenever he becomes a head coach. But yeah, the Wes Johnson, I don't know if Georgia's going to be a long-term thing. Who knows? Maybe somebody else hires him, but yeah, he's got him turned around quick, fast, and in a hurry going to the College World Series last year, and they're going to be really good again this year. So,
I mean, look, not like DVH needs any propping up. We do. Like, everyone knows DVH is good. I think what he's developing with this coaching tree is starting to become one of the, like what might end up being kind of his legacy. Because you think about it, like Tony Vitello, this revolutionary hitting coach who really knows how to hit, knows how to create monsters at the plate. You have him and what he already had as a coach, and then he learns under Van Horn kind of how to run a program, how to get the most, how to instill that discipline, and now it turns into a monster at Tennessee. Wes Johnson, this elite pitching coach who already knows how to develop pitchers, he goes under Van Horn. He kind of learns how to run a program, how to take care of business, how to control the roster. Now he's building a monster over there at Georgia, and so I think Matt Hobbs could certainly be next in that whole situation. We'll see what Nate Thompson does whenever he becomes the head coach at Kansas State. We'll see, but I think that's going to end up like in 10, 20 years. I think we'll look back and be like, wow, DVH is creating some monsters a little bit.
Well, and I know this is supposed to be meant as a compliment, so hopefully no one takes it. But like, I mean, who is Dave Van Horn's worst assistant coach? That he's had is it like Dave Zorn, who was pretty good.
Right.
Like they've had, and I'm sure people are going to say Nate Thompson, blah, 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 like immediately off the top. But just he's done a good job of having some good assistant coaches is the point. Like he's done a good job of putting them in better positions too. And the fact that you have, as you mentioned, Nate Wes Johnson and Tony Vitello, and already in the SEC at other schools, which really, I know Georgia's had a little bit, Tennessee not so much, but like not really historically great SEC programs, and have turned them into College World and champion. In this case of Tennessee, shows you it's like, oh, it wasn't that they just went to a school that have all the support. No, they built something, and they're building something where they're at. So yeah, just really phenomenal coaches. And Dave Van Horn has an eye for great coaching, apparently.
John, you know what our buddy Yoda once said? He said, "We are what they grow beyond." And that is the burden of all masters, is that you teach them, and they eventually, your student, if all goes well, will be what you will. They will grow beyond even what you are, which unfortunately has been the case for Dave Van Horn. And I say that jokingly, but I definitely think it's relevant, and it's pretty cool to see, even though it's obviously cost Arkansas some games, and we wish we were winning titles. And we'll see. Listen, Dave's still got some life left in him. Let's not close the book on him. But it really is cool to see when you step back and look at it from that standpoint, and kind of seeing all these guys go on to have so much success. It's pretty cool. I want to get to this comment from Steve Bardwell, who is always in the chat, always bringing the good vibes. He says, hoping pitching staff peaks later rather than earlier in the season. Potential is there, especially when Gage and Dietz get back. So, okay, someone earlier asked if I have been underwhelmed with the pitching, and I said, based on just preseason expectation, I would lean toward slightly yes. Not truly, like I'm not upset about the pitching by any means, but like they're not putting up those like crazy gaudy numbers that we saw last year. And of course, you don't have a guy like Hagen Smith, but I still feel like top to bottom, it's a really good, well-rounded staff. And like we saw last week when Christian Fauch loses it, what a luxury to have a guy like Will McIntyre just in your back pocket sitting there. He didn't even throw this weekend. Some of Arkansas's better, more talented arms didn't even get on the mound this weekend. And so I just feel like at the end of the day, throughout the course of the season, 60, 65, 70 games, however long this team plays in the postseason, you're always going to have someone that you can go to that you have confidence in, no matter what the situation. If Gackle doesn't give you a great outing, all right, well, then you've got someone you got Colin Fisher who can come in and kind of give you 3 innings. Oh, if this lefty's not working, well, throw Parker Coyle at him. Maybe he'll work out. Fauch is struggling, doesn't have his command. All right, well, you got Baby Wiggins right there. It's like Arkansas always has an alternative in the pitching staff. And so, it hasn't been to the start of the season, like they haven't blown me away necessarily. Obviously, each guy's kind of shown their stuff. But I do think, like, I like what Steve says here about Gage and Dietz coming back. Those are two guys that are two of the most talented pitchers on the staff. And Gage has only been able to throw, whatever is 7 innings this year so far. Dietz hasn't thrown at all. I'm curious to see if Dave will give us an update. Apparently, Dietz threw a bullpen this past weekend. So we'll wait to see what his status is. It seems like he could be inching closer to getting on the mound, but those are 2 wild cards that you're about to get ready to throw into the mix. And this is a weekend where Arkansas had all these guys that they didn't have to throw. And so I do think, like Steve says, there's opportunity there for like the pitching staff to peak down the stretch. And it's good to see that this offense has a little bit of a higher ceiling in them than we maybe thought.
Well, and it's also about, the committee idea. I know that, having a Hagen Smith and Kevin Kopps in those 2 years that you had those guys, not making the World Series is a travesty, like totally a travesty for that. But it also kind of shows you that, sometimes when it comes to who gets the World Series or who gets to the World Series, and using the examples that Arkansas's had, it's like, it's not, you have an ace pitcher, you have someone that's really good, but it was all the time. You had guys that could just step in and count on, in 2022, I think me and you talked about this, Andrew, the other day. Like, people may forget like an Evan Taylor. That dude was just a solid dude that would come in and do things. And it wasn't like, oh, he's going to be a top 10 pick or anything. You just need a bunch of guys like that. Now, yeah, it helps to have an ace. It helps to have a gold spikes winner, but you got to have guys surrounding him. And that's where, I'm not saying that all of it's going to come together, but given the circumstances, how much talent you have, the two guys that were mentioned of Deeds and Wood being out, the experience that you have, is everybody stays healthy, knock on wood. You may not have that number one top 10 pick, but you could have 6 to 7 dudes that you can count on anytime they're on the mound to make plays and to get you out of jams and whatnot. So to me, that's the name of the game, is just about managing that roster, managing that pitching staff. And they got all the talent with it. They just need to, find the right guys, find the right plays, and find the right moves. And I don't see any reason why this Arkansas team can't have one of the better pitching staffs they've had under Dave Van Horn.
Yeah, it's kind of like Alabama football, where the years where Alabama has a big-time quarterback, they don't win a title. That's happened a lot, where like some of the best quarterbacks you've seen at Bama don't win titles, but then Jacob Coker comes in, Greg McElroy comes in, AJ McCarron, like these just random guys that lead the charge. That 2022 team that you referenced, Connor Nolan was the ace. And I don't want to downplay Connor Nolan, who's, by the way, might pitch in the big leagues in the next year or two. He's throwing really well in the minors. But like when we were watching Connor Nolan, we weren't like, yo, watch out for this guy. It wasn't like clear your schedule. So it is kind of weird how like Arkansas, the years where they maybe don't have the best pitching staff on paper winds up being the years where they really put it together. I mean, 2018, that staff was led by Blaine Knight and Casey Murphy, two guys that are in state that are just like selling insurance these days. It's sometimes you need all of them, really. Like, we all want to have the Hagen Smith. We all want to have the dominant closer. You really need guys for every situation. And that's what I feel like this Arkansas team really has. Shout out to Seawall Fishing, who comes in and says Deadpool. That's another guy that heals very quickly. That's a good one right there. Angel, I don't know if Angel is making a joke or not. He says, yes, I believe in grooming and building. Grooming. And he follows up grooming coaches. He believes in grooming. I like that. I've been looking for it. I don't think Dave has done his press conference yet. I'm like anxious to see what he says about Vahiva Aloy. I'm a little bit worried. I don't know why he left the game today, but I saw somebody say he was, after he got taken out, he was up on the side. He was eating sunflower seeds and just kind of hanging out. So hopefully that's a good sign. But I don't know, man. I'm a little bit nervous.
Yeah. I mean, I know that it looks like his press conference did happen, but nobody has tweeted out anything. And I was actually, I don't know, Andrew, I know we're doing this live, but I didn't see that. I guess they don't put out a Zoom link like they do in the other emails to people.
They bury it.
Because I was going to take it.
They bury it when they send out the like, here's credentials for the weekend. Here's where you should apply. They put all 3 for the weekend in that email. And so it's like they sent out the email like Thursday. You kind of have to, that gets me sometimes, where I'm like scrambling through my email inbox to try and get on the press conference. It's because they do that. They bury it like that.
Good to know for future reference.
Yeah. A few more chats, guys. I appreciate everybody for being here, man. It's always awesome to recap the weekend and talk ball on a Sunday afternoon. Very casual, laid back, and we're in better spirits, it feels like, in the chat. We'll get to a few more chats. So if you got any last questions, any last hoorahs, get them in now. We're just going to touch on a couple, and then we'll get out of here and let you guys enjoy your Sunday. But Westside Jacoby says, having the Aloy brothers and Iredale as your core is strong. Just need guys to step up here and there around them for this team to be really good. I saw a comment earlier from Dylan Clifton who said Iredale was made in the lab, and that he was. And look, that's another thing when we talk about the lineup and how good they're going to end up being. Who knows where they'll end up ranking in terms of the SEC? But I think what you have is 2 guys in the middle there, really 3 if you're counting both Aloys and Iredale. And we'll see if Kahio Aloy is able to kind of continue his tormenting. But I mean, all 3 of those guys are guys that SEC teams have to fear, like really have to watch out. Arkansas's had some good hitters here in the lineup the last few years. Like Peyton Stovall hit 340 last year, had a really good year. I don't think SEC teams were like waiting, like sitting there like, watch out, dude. Watch out. Stovall's coming up. He's going to slap a space hit to left field. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's one of those things. Arkansas's had a collection of pretty good hitters. They've got some like dudes is what I would describe them as gorillas, if you will, guys that you really have to circle, guys that are going to hit 20, 25 home runs. I mean, they're all on pace. They all have 6 home runs right now. I guess they're on pace for like 30. Guys that are really going to put up those crazy numbers. We haven't seen a hitter at Arkansas put up gaudy numbers in a long time. It's been since 2017 since someone hit 20 home runs. You might have 2 or 3 guys do it this year. I just think it raises the overall ceiling. And like West Side Jacoby was saying, you really just need a few guys each weekend to step up around them. And so it's going to be interesting to see if guys like Davalon, who got it going this weekend, guys like Maxwell, guys like Diggs, guys like Souza, Helfrich, who homered today, it's going to be up to them to, pitch in and take advantage of these other guys that are going to demand so much attention here.
Well, I was going to ask you, because I think with they don't have the latest season updates, except for today's game. But since Iredale did hit a home run, you have 3 guys tied at 6 home runs. So both Aloys and Iredale. I'll be curious to see who ends up with the most. I'm sure that there's probably betting. Who knows? Maybe I'll get with Bet Saracen and be like, hey, put some odds and some specials on these 3 guys. Who you think ends up being the home run leader at the end of the season? Because like you said, you could have 2, maybe 3 guys having 20, which would be nice. It'd be fun. Obviously, you got to score in other ways too, but it's just nice to know that you have those threats of guys that anytime they get to the plate, there's a chance that it's going yard no matter what.
Definitely. You need those guys that you have to stop what you're doing and watch their ABs. And I feel like Heston Kjerstad was really the last guy Arkansas's had that was kind of like that. The 2021 team had a lot of good players, but Christian Franklin, you didn't stop the presses to watch him bat. Matt Goodhart, you weren't like, whoa, watch out. I think Arkansas's got a few guys that are kind of in that echelon. One guy we haven't talked about a ton today, Hog On It says, not a lot of props. Note a lot of props for Thomas. I don't know if that's not, or maybe
I think it's not. I think it's not.
Not a lot of props. Honestly, he's holding his own against a lot of other big names in the outfield. Yeah, I mean, Justin Thomas he's lived on base. I think he was 0 for 3 today, but he hit one ball pretty hard, squared it up to center field, made the awesome play there. I mean, for a guy like that's in there for his defense, he's in there for his athleticism. Pretty much anything he does at the plate is a bonus, and he's given Arkansas some good bonuses here lately. I think he's hitting just under 300. He's been pretty solid, and I thought it was interesting that he got 3 starts this weekend.
Yeah, I was too. And I like he's got a lot of swagger too, which I know, it's so cliche to say, but he does. He's smiling when he makes plays. He's had a little flair to him and whatnot. So, I like that. Hey, just a random question, Ellis, and maybe you talked about it or mentioned it. I hadn't heard, but I guess it was yesterday's game. Or maybe it was the game before when Aloy got hit by the pitch and just chunked the bat. I guess he was angry. I don't know if you saw Dave's kind of facial expression, but it wasn't a good one. And
you didn't like that?
Well, I think it was more of I couldn't tell if it was more of he was frustrated that, he got hit and he hit his player and it was all that, or he was frustrated at Aloy for being like, hey, dude, what are you doing? But it just seemed like it was such a funny, the reason he threw that bat is to keep himself from charging the mound type of anger. It was just really random and funny. I don't know why.
I noticed the aggressive bat throw, and they tweeted out a highlight package of Aloy yesterday after the game, and they included that bat throw. And I was like, I don't think that was a home run bat throw. I think that was an angry hit by pitch bat throw. But yeah, I noticed that as well. That's funny that DVH had that reaction. Maybe it was just his shortstop getting hurt. But yeah, I thought that was a funny, what was Vahiva going to, is he a hothead like that? I don't think he is,
no.
But who knows? That's actually a good time to segue to this question from Christian Holder. This comment says, Aloy came out yesterday early yesterday too. I think DVH is just resting him some for SEC play. So I can see the case for this. And look, maybe, you mentioned the hit by pitch. Maybe that's something where they're like, hey, I mean, is this guy, what's going on? I would also point out that in Arlington, he banged up his wrist a little bit. He didn't miss any time. He didn't get taken out, but he had a play where he had to dive and he came up shaking out his right wrist. And then he's been wearing something on it, a little, I don't know, it's tape or whatever. So maybe that's bothering him more than he's let on. Keep in mind, Vahiva Aloy played not only started every game, played every inning for Arkansas at shortstop last year. You don't see that happen too much, really at any level of baseball. And, for a guy that is as big time as Vahiva Aloy that has so much draft prospects, it's interesting to see how much Arkansas rode him last year. I wonder if DVH maybe going into this season was like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to play my shortstop, 1,000 innings. I want to kind of get him some time off. So perhaps yesterday it made a lot more sense in a 10-0 game to get him some rest. In a 5-3 game in the 7th inning on Sunday, not the time I would have thought to get that rest, but I do think that it is potentially possible. We got a report from the chat, by the way. Hog says DVH said Aloy had a tight leg, but not concerned. I'll take it.
Good.
That sounds like Billy Richmond type of cramp situation. I'll take it. But I'm a little concerned if that's allowed. I'm a little concerned, but
Hey, and also, by the way, Ellis, you can play it at the end or whenever we're done. But I put in the Dave Van Horn's, his post speeches and out there on the field. I put it in the
video.
videos.
Did they tweet it out for this one?
Yeah. So I put it in the video section. So if we ever want to play it, hear what Dave said to the team.
Let's hear what DVH had to say.
Really good ball game as far as pitching was outstanding. Cheese, nice job. Gave us a chance to get off to a good start. Like I told you, you're going to get their best shot today, and you guys took it. I mean, you got out hit, but you guys got the big hits. And our bullpen did a tremendous job coming in, finishing it up, and kind of held on there. But really good double play there to end the game. That was beautiful. Good sweep. Played good D all week. And sometimes that's the difference in the ball game. So you guys need to rest up because this is a week leading up to SEC play. All right. So great job, good weekend, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right. Good job, fellas.
Yes, Lord. I was on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Dave is he's good for like a fire up post game speech here and there. Today was not the fire up speech, and not what you would expect. He's got to be the even keel, keep him steady. I like that he talked about the defense. We don't talk about defense a ton because it's kind of boring. Nobody cares about the defense. But once again, that's back-to-back weekends. Arkansas did not make a single error. And that's one where level of competition does not matter. It's just, can you field the ball? And that's something we've seen with this Razorback team just year in, year out. They don't beat themselves. They do all the little things right. Something we probably take for granted. They entered today with a 988 fielding percentage, that will obviously go up to 989 or whatever. The program record is 981, which they've set here in the last. They set it in 2022, and I think they set it again in 2023 or 2024. But like they've had some really good fielding teams, and this team is on pace for even better than that. Of course, there'll be plenty of fluctuation, but it's just something that continues to be a factor. And he mentioned the double play there. You have a freshman second baseman that has to come in because Fayetteville Loy comes out of the game. And he's the one who turns the double play. I mean, Iredale to him turns that double play. Like, that's just good stuff. You love to see that. And Arkansas's had a lot of guys moving around. I mean, Rocco Pepe played first today. The outfield's a revolving door. You'll get Becker in there, catcher. It doesn't matter. Arkansas's fielding the ball really well no matter what. And you just love to see that, man. You just love to see it. A few other people that are commenting on DVH's clarification. So Hogg followed up and he said, Aloy didn't want to come out, but DVH said he's not risking it, and hopefully he'll be good by Tuesday. But if not, then Friday for sure. Yeah, definitely not going to be upset if we don't get Fayetteville Aloy playing shortstop against UCA. I think that's who it is. They play Tuesday night. Yep. So yeah, definitely give him some rest, get him ready for SEC play. I always like to hear he didn't want to come out. Yeah. Like that always is a good sign to me.
Well, and also Dave Van Horn's not going to have a player that's not going to have that mentality. Like that's just he's not going to have that player. But just real quick to your point though about the defense, that's something I don't think that gets enough credit. Of one thing that's been consistent about our Razorback baseball really since the turn of the 2020s, they have had players have changed too. They have had some of the best defense you'll ever see. I mean, whether it's in the infield with the shortstop, second base combos. As our guy John Bolton always gets a lot of grief on stuff. The dude was great at turning those double plays there. They've had great outfielders. So, hitting hasn't always been there. Pitching's been suspect or inconsistent. But the one thing that they've been always great at has been defense over the past 5 years.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like one of those things that, again, we never talk about it until we have to talk about it. But in these games, I mean, obviously today was a 5-3 game. Portland only made one error. Arkansas didn't make one. Maybe that was the difference. But you get in the SEC, every out matters, every play matters, every run matters. And being elite defensively is always going to kind of give you that edge, regardless of what you're doing at the plate or on the mound. And so with a more talented team overall, it's good to see them. It's not like they're sacrificing more offense for bad defense or anything like that. So love to see that. And touching on this last comment we'll bring up is Hog on it says, Souza had a decent glove today. No Bobby Moore by any means, but he wasn't a liability today. Yeah, I was worried he was going to get charged with his first career error. But I think that's also a luxury to have, that you can have him move over to shortstop. I want to give Rick Nomura credit, because when I asked him, I was kind of trying to lob him up to make the case for Souza at any other position just to see if there was any fun possibilities. He's a guy that Arkansas threw in the outfield last year during practice and was kind of thinking about going that route with him. Rick Nomura was like, I think he can play shortstop next year. I think when Fayetteville leaves, he's a shortstop. And I remember kind of thinking, are you sure, buddy? But I got to be honest, he looks like a middle infielder. He looks like a linebacker middle infielder, which is just a rare body type. But nowadays, you remember back in the day when second basemen and shortstops were 5'7"?
Yep.
I do. But now they're 6'3", 6'4", and they turn double plays and have rocket arms, and it's awesome. But with Sousa's offense, it's going to continue. It's always going to be fluctuating. He's going to be a boomer bust offensive player. If he's able to really stick at second base or shortstop, you can live with that a lot more. I mean, we lived with it last year with Fayetteville Fly. When you're playing an infield position, it's a little bit easier to be hit or miss, and I think that's why Sousa is going to continue to be in that lineup is because of that defense for sure.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because I was actually talking about that with somebody else at the game yesterday. I was just like, I remember like my guy Tim Carver, guy I went to high school with, but he played shortstop. Ben Chepacaw played shortstop. I mean, these were not big, just specimens. You're like, holy crap! I mean, they looked like me and you out there, just regular dudes. But yeah, it's the game's changed and things have changed and. Know that I guess because Jalen Battles wasn't a little fella by any stretch either. I mean, he was like
6'2". He was like 6'2", 205 or something like that. Like he was a little bit bigger than him, but Battles was definitely he was kind of the evolution. That was like the beginning of that where we were like, this is just what we have at Arkansas now.
Yeah, Casey Martin was the last of that kind, and then they just moved into getting dudes that you have to be the size of SEC linebackers to get out there.
Yeah. Well, regardless of the shape and size, we love our Diamond Hogs no matter what. They come in all shapes and sizes, all different skill sets. And it was a productive week of baseball for the Arkansas Razorbacks at Baum Stadium. They will wrap up their homestand. It was a 10-game homestand. I believe it's been an undefeated 10-game homestand. They're 9-0 so far. We'll see if they can get that 10th win Tuesday against UCA before they hit the road to play Ole Miss to open up SEC play. So a lot of high stakes action for the Arkansas Razorbacks here in the next few weeks. Going to be interesting to watch them test themselves against the SEC. But that'll do it for this weekend's edition of the Baumbastic Podcast, our Arkansas Portland series recap. Again, appreciate everybody for hanging out in the chat, participating, making this fun. It's always fun when we can talk ball and get together and hang out and shoot the shit a little bit. So appreciate everybody for being here. Give this stream a little like on your way out. Make sure you're subscribed to this our Inside Arkansas YouTube page. We will be back Inside Arkansas live tomorrow at noon. Curtis will be back with his pod at the Palace. We'll have Baumbastic every day. It's a busy time for Razorback sports. Spring football starts tomorrow. Basketball starting to heat up. We're in March. We sleep in May, as we know, but we never sleep at Inside Arkansas. And so a lot of action. Make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to all of our shows wherever you get your podcast. The Baumbastic Podcast, Pod at the Palace, Pod of That Nature, Inside Arkansas Live, whatever else we got going on. We're crushing it, man. So appreciate everybody for hanging out. John, I appreciate you for joining me. What is it you always say? For John Nabors, I'm Andrew Ellis. You're watching the Baumbastic Podcast. Have a great day, everybody.